short presentation hypothesizes the science, the neuroscience of education. Let us first discuss a few terms: intelligence, memory, and learning. Intelligence is the ability to respond meaningfully to a stimulus. There's a triad in information. You have information input, then you have information processing, and then you have an execution of a decision. All living creatures have intelligence. A unicellular organism will move towards sustenance and away from toxins. Plants grow their roots towards water and project their photosynthetic foliage to sunlight. The second term is memory. Memory involves the process of assimilating and retrieving information. Third term is learning. Learning can involve both factual or cognitive and motor skills. Learning proceeds along preloaded templates. That is, each species, each tribe, and each family have certain templates which facilitate learning. You cannot teach an elephant to cycle naturally. Same about the way you swim, the way you walk. So learning is on templates. Again, there are two types of learning. You have unstructured learning, which is information which you imbibe from your surroundings, and you have structured education, which is our classes, our training schedules. Information input is from the extrinsic environment. However, when we get an input from the extrinsic environment, our cognitive reserves supplement it with the experience of the past. So we have both an extrinsic component and an intrinsic component to any information. The intrinsic component enriches our understanding and the recording of the extrinsic information. Now, sensory input occurs through visual, acoustic, olfactory, gustatory or taste, and somatosensory or touch. Humans are visually dominant animals. So let's have a quick look at the visual pathway. Visual information moves in through the eyes whenever the eyes are open. Our eyes move within their sockets to focus upon objects of interest. So the object of interest usually comes in the central field of vision. However, there is also a peripheral visual field which does not immediately come to consciousness, but which is very important for motion detection, especially for hazard detection. From the eyes, visual information goes back through the optic nerves. The optic nerves of the right and left eye cross, the medial fibers cross at the optic chiasm, so that you have congruous visual fields coming from both eyes. Then the information passes back to the optic tract to reach the thalamus. The lateral geniculate body of the thalamus deals with vision. There is a concept of thalamic reflexes. Vision per se is not perceived at the thalamus. However, hazard reflexes might trigger off a response through the thalamus, and even it might trigger off the amygdala, resulting in fear. So a stone hurtling at your head, even before it registers in the occipital cortex, will cause you to duck. Optic radiations carry information from the lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus to the occipital cortex. These radiations pass through a lot of brain, parietal and temporal lobes, and as they pass through, there is a degree of prioritization of the visual imagery that passes through. Something that is more significant to the species and to the individual gets priority. At the occipital cortex, you have image registration. The outlines of the image are defined. And then you have visual association areas which tell you what the image is of and what is the context. Where is the image? Information which has been registered in the occipital and the occipital association cortices moves on to the hippocampus for recording. Here, multiple modalities of information are integrated. The hippocampus forms information sachets or sachets. The hippocampus is a desktop. It stores information for a limited period. This will get overwhelmed if you don't allow the information to move on from the hippocampus to more capacious repositories. And that repository is the neocortex. This transfer of information from the hippocampus to the neocortex occurs during non-rapid eye movement or short-wave sleep. There are two trajectories where this information goes. One is the frontal lobe and the other are the association cortices. Information transfer occurs in bulk when you are sleeping during NREM sleep. And these waves are defined as thalamocortical spindles. Information storage in the frontal lobe is in a way unique to humans because this information is gist information or abstracts, and the information in the frontal lobe is stored in language form. The ability of the frontal lobe to store abstract information in language form is a secret of human cognitive superiority. Association cortices receive full raw information. Now the information abstract and the information repository in the association cortex are tethered together through the caudate nucleus so that when a decision has to be made, a fast decision can be made at the frontal lobe with reinforcement of knowledge from the repositories in the association cortices. Information in the association cortices is stored differently from information in transfer. So how does information archival or storage occur? There are three ways in which information is stored. One is by synapses themselves. There is a synaptic maze depending upon, so it forms circuits similar to the Boolean plus or minus at each synapse, resulting in information storage. The second is the glia, which were long considered to be just supportive to the neurons. The glial syncytium has a role in information integration. And then ultimately, long-term information storage is beyond the synapse when information moves into neurons. You have single neurons which can store information on a particular concept. Halle-Berry neurons, for those who are fans of Halle-Berry, or grandma neurons, are all examples of single neural information storage. Now, this transfer of information from the synaptic maze to intraneuronal repositories occurs in REM sleep, that is rapid eye movement sleep. This is when dreams occur, because when information moves into neurons, there is a churn resulting in perception of some of the archived information. Now, information retrieval is mediated through the caudate nucleus. After information is retrieved, a decision is made, and then a task is executed. Task execution might be just cognitive, a knowledge or an experience is stored. It can be verbal, you can write or speak out in response to something, and it can be motor, where actual motor activity takes place. Now, coming to learning, the brain is not empty at birth. Each species, each individual already has some ingrained information recorded in the brain. The phonetic pattern of a child's cry, the way an infant will grab at a mother's nipple soon after birth for sustenance. All this is information which has already been loaded in the brain, pre-recorded. Even more significant than the pre-recorded information are templates for learning which are available in our genes. If you have a particular template, you can learn a particular skill or a particular group of facts. If you do not have the template, some of this learning is very difficult or often impossible. And templates are necessary for both cognitive input and recording, and also for learning motor skills. Learning paradigms, we are talking about cognitive learning now, are again template based. And these templates are variable. A species has got a particular kind of template. Races, tribes have templates which have evolved over years of doing a particular task, of having a particular outlook to life. So these templates can imbibe information based upon their structure. From an unstructured learning paradigm, we are talking about environmental. That we learn from the environment, we see, and this is unstructured learning. You see a man walk, and the baby tries to imitate him. So there is some motor imitation, speech, phonetic imitation. Then you have structured information, which is our school and college education. This is necessarily sequential. From the alphabets, you move on to sentences, to essays, to poems, and ultimately you can be a writer. Same with science. You cannot go to a higher grade without knowing the basics at the basic level. Templates for learning evolve with education. As each layer is filled, it becomes ready for the next layer of education. So this information input becomes knowledge when information which is stored is applied and you have feedback for correction, and knowledge can become wisdom. So templates facilitate learning. Learning conditions your templates further so that you can learn more. Application creates and cements knowledge. And wisdom is actually the interaction between knowledge and yourself, your personality, which gives you maturity to decide. what to act and when to act.